you ready to master the waves of medical device product development? Well, wax up your surfboard because you are listening to Inspired by Imua. And here is your medical device product development expert, that Hawaiian-hearted hostess who will help you hang 10, Meghan Alonso.
And aloha! You're listening to Inspired by Imua, where we help you master the waves of medical product development. Each week, we interview guests that educate, guide, and inspire to give you and your product the skills you need to hang 10. If this is your first time listening, Imua is spelled I-M-U-A, and it's a Hawaiian word. It means to advance forward with passion despite rough waves. There are plenty of those in medical product development, but keep listening because we've got you covered. So my episode today, I just wanted to stress that this guy has been through a big journey of just getting started, of overcoming some big medical issues that, he still deals with. And his company was born because of that. Similar to me, except I'm not developing a product. I'm helping you guys that are. So I guess my biggest takeaway from him is that he really shows what it takes, the stamina that you have to have as a startup to keep going and to keep getting past these rough waves that come at you and tumble you and shake you up, knock your breath out, but you just keep going. So he talks about going from pitch competition to pitch competition, and he won a pitch competition recently, so we get into that. And I guess it's the perfect lead-in to what I have going on, and I want you guys to listen and tune in next Monday, June 12th at 5 p.m., because what's happening there, speaking of pitching, is I'm having a pitch makeover competition right now. The winner's going to be announced June 12th at 5 p.m. live on my Facebook. So it's Imua Services Facebook page. Go ahead and like us and you can stay up to date. You can watch the live feed at 5 p.m. to find out who won. And if you're interested in that, if you're out there and you either don't have a pitch yet, so you need a pitch, or if you're going to pitch competitions and you're not having much traction yet, or if you're just not confident yet, or you don't like your pitch, then let's sit down, let's redo it. You can enter this contest and maybe you'll win the contest. So you can find the details out at imua-services.com/B-Day pitch. And the reason it's B-Day pitch is because next week is my birthday and I want to celebrate my birthday by doing something fun. And this is what I'm choosing. So I love to help people. I want to help someone do a pitch makeover. You're going to be able to see the before and after. It's going to be really fun. So again, if you're interested in this, it's imua-services.com/B-Day pitch, like birthday pitch. So back to my guest today. So I mentioned he's had some medical issues and he figured out, there's got to be a hack for this. I can probably do this better. So that's what he did. He went to a hackathon and a company was born. So without further ado, please help me welcome Nick Delmonico. Nick, are you ready to hang 10?
Ready to hang 10, Megan.
All right. So I gave a little description of who you are, but fill in the gaps a little bit. Give us more about your background and how you ended up in our industry.
My background actually is in finance and accounting for both life sciences and health system. So that's sort of how I started to get into the industry. But I also have a family that's full of people in clinical medicine. So I've always been excited and interested in life sciences and how you can integrate medical technology into the health system. Mm-hmm. So that's why I got started with Strados Labs, which is a way to help think about innovating health delivery, especially for chronic disease management.
Yeah. So is there any particular reason that you chose asthma, or tell us the story of how your product came to be? Like, what was the process of that idea and how did you move forward on that idea?
Sure. So for me, the answer to why asthma is because I've had asthma my entire life. And as far as the problems in the health system that hit me personally is as I've always struggled to manage asthma, especially when I was much younger as a kid, understanding my symptoms, being educated about the chronic disease, and really knowing what I could do to make sure that I had my asthma under control. So it's sort of a personal journey for me as to why asthma, and then sort of why I chose asthma specifically for medical technology. Well, it was because I went to a health hackathon actually at Jefferson University Hospital here in Philadelphia, and they had a sponsored track for the hackathon, which was wearable technology. So my question was that I had posed to the audience was, how do you help better manage asthma using a wearable technology?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I sort of was able to meet people in the industry, whether they were engineers, they were clinicians, they had a background in, business administration or hospital administration, and we started working on using a wearable device as a means of improving asthma and respiratory management. So that's really kind of where it all started for me, and that was about 2 years ago.
And you guys have had huge success in those 2 years, just really getting some traction, getting the ball moving, winning several different pitch competitions. So what's something today that has you really fired up? I know we talked about something big that happened just a few weeks ago, if you want to touch on that.
Yeah, and we've certainly had some traction, at least in the last few months, and kind of over the last few months and the last year or so. So it's been an interesting road, but we've been really excited about the last few weeks because we had the chance to compete and win in a very large business competition here in Philadelphia, the Temple Be Your Own Boss Bowl, which is a school-wide competition where anybody from undergrads all the way to PhD and alumni and actually professors can compete with their business plans for cash prizes. So it was actually the second year in a row that we had competed. Last year we were in second place in our track, so we were able to compete again. Fortunate enough this year to actually win our track, which was the Urban Health Innovation track, and that was sponsored by Independence Blue Cross and Temple Hospital. And then we were able to win the grand prize as well. So for us, that the excitement was around validating that what we're trying to accomplish is something that urban health innovation needs, and also validating that we've done enough over the last year or so to really understand our market and see that there's an opportunity for this to get into the hands of people who have asthma and other respiratory conditions. So really exciting for us.
Yeah, congratulations. And before this one, I know you've won some other competitions. And as a startup, an entrepreneur listening to this, some people out there in our audience may be thinking like, wow, how do I get started with pitch competitions and especially winning pitch competitions? So what's some good feedback that you've experienced? Okay, it's just starting to click now. It's easier. What's been that for you and Strados?
Yeah, I would say that the best feedback that we've received, and it's consistent feedback from whether it's a judge or an investor or an advisor, is really understanding not only the problem you're trying to solve, but who's going to buy the solution that you're trying to make. Because those are it's sort of the start and finish, right, of the product. And then obviously you have to have a solution or service or product that does in fact work, but you have to understand truly, are people interested? Is there a problem and a pain point that you're trying to solve? Is that validated? And then is somebody willing to purchase that solution? And then understanding the features around that. So we've done, I think that the biggest thing for us to be successful, especially early stage medical technology, is we focus on the lean method of development. So we go to our end users and our potential purchasers very early on in the process to get their feedback about what they want, what key features they care most about in our technology. So for us, do you want a actual product that can be worn on the chest or on the back, or in what way is that actually worn on the body? Because that will drive, one, the data that's being collected and the accuracy of that data, and whether or not, in fact, people will use it in the long run. So for us, the biggest problem point with a wearable technology, this is a problem that consumer health technologies face as well as medical grade technologies, is customer adoption. So how long people are willing to wear the device for, and whether it's comfortable and whether it's easy to use. Because if you can't get people to buy in early on how customer focused the wearable technology is, then it's hard to integrate a full clinical solution behind it. So that's something we think of our product very much so like a consumer wearable, because it has to be really good, but it also has to be accurate and get good data like a medical grade device. So I think getting early feedback has been really important for us to validate that our product fits the market.
So speaking of that, That's awesome that you've done all that out. I'm always giving that advice that that's the most important thing. So if there's investors listening right now, or if there's family offices listening right now, or anyone that wants to invest in your company, what would you say is the value proposition that you are sharing with them? What's the punchline?
Yeah, and for us, we're building a better way to manage respiratory health. And that is not just a consumer facing problem, it's also one that can be integrated into clinical research. It can be integrated into care coordination. And we've seen in the market that remote monitoring is only set significantly 13 to 15% each year for the next 10 years. And it's because we already know that diabetes monitors, heart rate monitors for people who have heart disease have significantly helped improve the cost of care and the quality of care. And realizing that a remote monitoring device can do something very similar is something that we are strategically focused and geared towards in our company. So yeah, it's really understanding the respiratory market and where it's going in the future. And we're sort of at the spearhead of that, which is really exciting.
So what is the alternative? Like what are people doing today to manage it? And then what is the cost savings, or how big is the market that you're spearheading?
So right now, as far as the data gap that exists for consumers, somebody who has, for example, asthma or COPD, is they're told what they, as in what medications they should take when they feel a certain way. And that's one of the key ways to manage asthma, is identifying and understanding signs and symptoms. But the CDC has done surveys, and there have been other sources have done significant surveys around people actually never being educated or not truly understanding those signs and symptoms. So if you have people who should be knowing what's happening in their bodies and taking action who aren't, then you're never getting to the next step, which is medication tracking and management. So right now, the alternatives in our space have been inhaler tracking and trending. So there are a few companies out there that are the best at, once a medication's taken, tracking that it's been taken.
So like, is that Cohero? Have you heard of Cohero?
Yeah. So Cohero. Yeah, Cohero Health and Propeller Health are the two that come to mind for us. And we were actually featured on CB Insights 49 digital health companies this pound that are, kind of at the forefront of their space. And we were the third. What they're focused on is managing inhaler use. So tracking that in real time and in an automated fashion, which actually would pair really well with what we're doing, which is actually helping people better understand their signs and symptoms in real time with data monitoring. So the value add is actually in some ways complementary to what they're offering, which is really exciting for us. And as far as clinical research, I think this is really one of the more exciting areas for us is right now in pulmonary research for, say, a new medication that's coming out. The asthmatics or whoever, the COPD patients who are in the trials have to adhere to using their peak flow meters, which is a measure of lung health over time. But if they don't properly track those peak flows, they get kicked out of the study because it's not good data for the CRO or for the researcher. But what we're actually going to propose, and we've been talking with CROs recently, is we can give them a real-time monitor of their respiratory condition. So you can see how taking a medication improves or doesn't improve their disease state in real time. You can then pair that with peak flows, but you don't necessarily have to rely on that. So there's an opportunity for cost savings in getting the data they need and being efficient with their clinical trials. So that's sort of the clinical trial side, an ROI. And then on the consumer side, asthma is a $56 billion a year cost in the United States alone. And that's primarily hospitalizations, ER visits, and missed school and work days. And that's about $3,300 per person who ends up being hospitalized. So if you have a few $100 solution and that goes to the most high utilizing patients, you only need a small reductions to validate that there's an ROI. Now, we don't have that data yet because that requires an outcome study, but that's part of some of the work stream that we're working on right now is partnering with asthma researchers and academic medical centers to try and conduct that type of study.
Yeah, that would be really helpful. So it sounds like you're well on your way and you've made significant progress. But what would you say as a startup, what's one of the biggest challenges that you faced or that you're facing right now?
So for us, the biggest challenges moving forward is one, getting the right team together to work on this. So I have a team of myself and two co-founders right now, and their backgrounds are in biomedical engineering and clinical medicine. But also, we have to recognize the need for a product developer and designer and somebody who understands consumer wearables and also understanding sort of how to connect devices into, a mobile facing platform and also integrating that with other Internet of Things data, because that's another big opportunity for us is once we have the device working and a platform, then you can start getting predictive machine learning data around clinical health. And then so building in IoT capabilities is really key. And we're working on all of that right now. We're doing some recruiting and getting some consulting work, which will help us integrate all of those things.
Mm-hmm. So what's been working for you? I mean, you have yourself and the two other co-founders. Did you know them right off the bat, or did you have to hire them? Well, I guess they're co-founders, so it started. But I guess what I'm getting at is how did you know, okay, these people are really going to be advantageous in building this company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a big challenge for any startup, and we certainly had our own challenges in the beginning where we actually had a team of about like 7 or 8 people at the hackathon that we went to. So that's really where like the whole idea kind of generated from was this hackathon that we were at in 2015, of which at least one of my other co-founders now was there. And then the other co-founder knew somebody at Jefferson Hospital, and that's how we got in contact with her. But that was a major pain point in the beginning is, we had a team of 7 people at this hackathon, and then, a handful seemed like they were interested afterwards. So we had some follow-up meetings about, how do we build this device and how do we move forward as a company if we wanted to build a company. And then, over the next few weeks and months, you start to realize who really is invested and who's not invested. And some people come to that realization themselves, and then some people don't come to that realization themselves. And you have to have that hard discussion early on about, being a founder and starting a company versus, cutting the cord. So we had those challenging conversations, and we continue to try and focus on who really cares a lot about our problem and building our solution. So we've actually started building in a lot of vetting into anybody who we have, whether it's an intern or it's a contractor or a consultant. There's a few levels of trust that we have to build first before we really start moving forward, which it's helped us, and it's also helped contractors. We don't want to waste their time, don't want to waste our time if it's not a good fit. So that's been helpful for us.
Yeah. So with being a startup and you're pre-revenue, you're winning some pitch competitions, but it's still really difficult. It's not like all of you get a big salary. So what are you all doing in order to just sustain living, and to pay rent and to pay your other personal expenses? Do you guys have jobs on the side, or are you just stretching those pitch dollars? Or tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So my other 2 co-founders are actually part-time, but they work a ton of hours on our project. But one of them is a clinician. He's a physician at Jefferson Hospital, so he has a sustained income through that. And then our other co-founder is a PhD student. So she's doing this research, research for her PhD, and also doing some of this research on the side, as well as a lot of the management of her work stream. So she's she has folks who she's working with, consultants and interns, to manage them and their work stream. I'm full time on this now, so I just finished my MBA at Temple in healthcare. So actually, I technically graduate next week, but I've been done for about.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. It was really helpful in giving me some background in some of the business concepts, but I'm really excited to move forward with this full time. And so I do some work on the side.
Okay, I was just going to ask you, maybe you had student loans or something coming in, so you do some work on the side?
Yeah, I try and do some consulting work. I've been working with another startup in the health space, but it's a little bit more of the elective health space. And so I make a little bit of money on the side doing that. And it also helps me understand some of the sales processes as well, because they're more in the process of trying to build a platform of users and suppliers. So they're already in sort of developing the sales channel. So it's good practice for me as well to see how they do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're getting a view of someone beyond where you're at. And then, so you're learning at the same time. Like that's pretty good. You're getting paid to learn and filter it back into your own startup.
Yeah, it's been really great. And I was going to move into my brother's apartment and live on his couch, but we got enough funding where, I don't necessarily need to live on a couch, and it's not even efficient because he lives outside of the city, so I'd have to come into the city every day and buy a train pass. So I'm not really saving that much money, and it would put me at a disadvantage from being inefficient. So I still live in the city, which is nice. And it's not too expensive here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's good. You mentioned at the beginning of the interview that you focus on the lean method. And I haven't told many people this because it just started, but I just started a book club to where we're going to eventually do one book a month. But since it's just starting, we'll do The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. We're doing that in May and June. And so the info for that, you guys can find it. It's just imua-services.com/free book. And you can get a copy of The Lean Startup or any other audio book that you want. You can get a copy of it for free. And then we'll go through the book every Friday. We're forming some discussion around that. But it sounds like you've already read that, or at least have adopted the principles.
Yeah, I've read parts of that and some of the other lean type of, at least articles that have been written. And there's actually a lot of the contractors that we've been working with in the med device space. They put out some really good blogs around, applying the lean method specifically for hardware and specifically for medical devices too. So that's been great because, for us, it's not just like, okay, lean method sounds good, but it's like, how has it actually been applied for other types of medical devices? Because med device is a little bit of an interesting space in that there's, regulatory pathway, and there's also the user isn't always the purchaser in some areas.
So which blogs are you reading? I'm curious. I'm going to write them down and check it out.
Thinking about lean method is, I think, it's based in New York City, and they have some other locations across the country. They put out a really good one that was more hardware focused. Yeah, it's Bolt, BOLTIO, and that is it's a hardware accelerator I think it's in New York City, but they have other locations as well.
Awesome.
And then Smithwise, one word.
Okay, and then tell me more about them.
Yeah, and they do device design and development. They're originally based in Boston, and they have some offices here in Philadelphia as well. And so they put out some good blogs around lean method and thinking through the problem and doing a lot of usability studies and feasibility studies early on before you start building the really elaborate device. So I think there was a really interesting, I'm not sure if it was Bolt or Smithwise, who I think it was Bolt actually. The example was essentially like a laundry service that you could use in a hospital, and one company built this really elaborate machine where you could put the scrubs in and they would be washed in full company that actually did it for you, by hand. And they figured out some of the process improvement opportunities and how much people were willing to pay for it and all these things. So they figured out how to make a cost efficient machine and process versus building this really nice elaborate thing first and then realizing this doesn't really solve the problem and it's too expensive anyway. So, we can't make it. So I think that's just an interesting example of how to think about the problem and the solution.
Yeah. And feasibility is great for that. And usability too. Actually, the FDA is getting stricter and stricter on formative usability studies. So there's formative studies, and that takes place when the product is still in development. So you test, you get this user feedback, you show that users know how to use it properly. And your mission there is to find errors. And then you feed those errors back to the engineers, and then the engineering team can incorporate human factors and mitigate those errors, mitigate those risks. And then later on, when the product is complete and you do your summative usability studies, everything flies with passing colors. And it's really important. And that is essentially incorporating the lean method too, of you got to find it out early what people are going to do with your product and change it accordingly. Okay, so we're coming up towards the end here. What's the best piece of advice you would give someone that's just starting out being a med device, med tech, biotech entrepreneur?
Yeah, I would say if you're starting out and it's your first time, one is be prepared and ready for what the industry is. It's not building just an application with relatively low regulatory standards. You have to really, be ready to have to focus your innovation around certain roadblocks, but also really understanding the problem you're trying to fix first and doing a bunch of research around competitors, what's in the market now and how regulation and just market forces are impacting what you're trying to do specifically, because timing is big in any startup, and it's important in the medical space because there are so many changes that happen in the insurance side and also regulations and technology that you have to be really very careful about what you're trying to do. We're still trying to figure that out ourselves, admittedly, but it's always on the forefront.
Yeah, and it's a process too. And from 2 years ago when you first started, things changed. The value system of healthcare, the way delivery is done, that keeps changing. So it's always good to keep up to speed. So the second question I have for you is, what do you do to keep yourself going? I posted a video about this recently, to where it takes a lot of just steeliness or mental toughness or faith or just determination, whatever you want to call it, especially for a product-based startup where you know that for X amount of years, you're going to have no revenue, and you still have to get up every morning and work on your product and pitch people for investment. So what is it for you that does that helps keep you going every day?
I would say the one thing that keeps me motivated and the team motivated is talking about the problem that we're trying to solve. So always having stories about people who have asthma and how it is that they could have had a better experience if we had a solution in mind for them, and just thinking about what it is that we're trying to accomplish on a given day and how our solution ultimately will help people.
Yeah, and you're at the end of the day, you're focused on others. You're focused on serving others.
Yeah, exactly. And that, we get people who see us on, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, or people that we talk to in person, whether it's just kind of passersby or if it's at some sort of exhibit that we're doing, and they give us their feedback about how amazing it is what we're trying to do and how helpful it can possibly be for either them or their parent or their friend or their son or whoever it is. It just continues to validate that we're working on something special, and it keeps us excited about it.
Awesome. So speaking of LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way to reach out to you?
So you can find us at www.stradoslabs.com. We have information about the team and some of the research we're doing. So if you want to participate, we actually have some surveys and studies we're doing now. So feel free to check that out. And then we're Strados Labs on Twitter and Strados Labs on Facebook as well. So you can just search us there and find out more.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on today. And I know not only are you serving others in asthma, but you're inspiring other startups and entrepreneurs to just keep going, keep pushing through those rough waves. Wow. Well, I got a lot out of that interview, and I hope you guys did too. And just to remind you, that book club that we mentioned in the interview, and how you can get your free copy of The Lean Startup or any other audiobook that you would like from audible.com, you can head over to imua-services.com/free book. And another bonus for you, remember, next week I announce the winner of my pitch makeover contest. So if you don't have a pitch, or if you do have a pitch but you're not that confident, or if you have one and you're not winning pitch competitions, let's do a makeover. Let's do all the before and after, and you can be a part of that over at imua-services.com/B-Day pitch. And hang with me next week, Monday at 5 p.m. I'll be doing the podcast live on Facebook Live. So you can interact, you can ask me questions. I'll announce the winner of the contest, and it'll be lots of fun. I hope to see you there. And until then, Imua.
Mahalo for joining us. If you're new to riding the waves of medical device product development, or if you've been in development for a while already, Inspired by Imua is here to surf with you. Want to be a master of the waves? Text HANG10, that's HANGTEN, to 44222. We'll send you the most common wipeouts companies make in product development so you can avoid them and reach master wave status. Again, that's HANG10 to 44222. We publish a new episode every Tuesday, so catch us at inspiredbyimua.com. Imua!